Hello everyone, Jester Bell is back with a review for Harleen 2. Now I know by the time this video gets on YouTube, it's probably going to be 2 weeks since the book actually came out, and I'm sorry, I've been busy with some other stuff, so I couldn't get this out. I couldn't just sit down and do my review like I wanted to because I had other things going on. But it's a review I've been waiting to do ever since I read the book. Now, if you watched my first video, you'll remember that I had some criticisms about Stjepan Sejic's, I think that's how you pronounce your name. I'll get it right eventually. I had some criticisms with his first book, despite really enjoying some parts of it. I said that I thought that he had made Harley as a doctor a bit more boring than she needs to be after what Paul Dini set up. But I said, and that's of course what we got most in that book, but I also said that the stuff he did with the Joker, anything with him individually, anything of him with Harley, was really, really well done, really, really interesting. And as might be foreshadowed, I have this time around, which mostly focuses on Joker and Harley, I have some very, very high praise for it. Still some criticisms, and they mainly come from what I already said about the first issue. The first issue, again, Harley as a doctor is really just kind of a bland, very generic personality, not really much personality at all. And for this book, what I'll criticize about it is the beginning portion. Mostly the first third is just her as a doctor again, and seeing Gotham kind of descend more into madness from her point of view, having Harvey Dent go crazy, now becoming Two-Face. His origin is also in this. Seeing a new gang arrive, a new gang of vigilantes arise, and it all keeps moving, but it's all pretty just dull, and I was very bored for it because, again, Harley's kind of has a boring personality there. I did like the scene with her and Batman. I thought that was interesting to see him through her perspective and see the police department through her perspective and how they're very all over the place and very just intense all the time and very exhausted from everything they have to do. And I'll say there's one little thing to criticize with this book, and that is where we're going with Harley's origin, that we may be doing the vat of acid thing. It's a given now. We're going to do the vat of acid origin. And I'm not a fan of that for certain reasons. It might work in this version, but I'll talk to about that next issue when we actually get to it. But for this second issue, once we get to the actual Joker stuff, oh my goodness, it is absolutely amazing. It's enough for me to give this book 11 out of 10. It's absolutely. So in the first issue, there was a scene when she does her, maybe it was the first issue, or maybe it was the second. Oh, I can't even remember. When she first does her initial session with the Joker, I think it's in the beginning of this book, there's a scene where he's really just erratic and all over the place and crazy, and then there's a little moment where he says that the stuff he just wishes for maybe some honesty, some honest smiles from people, and Harley sees that, and I thought, no, this book, because I thought what the book should do is it should take that and have Harley remember that and think about that later and have that be a part of the reason why she thinks that maybe there's some sort of softer side to him. And I thought, no, it can't be going that way. This book, we cannot be getting a Harley book that actually is intelligently written, that actually has some subtlety in it, that actually has different things you can look at and different ways you can look at the book. Oh, but we get back to it. We actually have it. We have multiple things that surprise you of how the Joker is manipulating and how he's laying seeds for her, laying breadcrumbs for her to pick up and for her to make it seem like she is finding out the real him when it's really all manipulation. And even Harley underestimates the Joker in the beginning, thinking he's just kind of this pretentious fool who thinks he's smarter and better than he is. But she doesn't realize that she's being completely played by him the entire time. And it's interesting because this is Mad Love and this story basically telling the same story, but they're doing it in such a different way. And the thing about Mad Love is, even though there was some narration from Harley, it was basically an objective look. It was the audience looking objectively at their relationship and how it was forming. And it got really, really absurdly funny because we could see how absurd it was. We could see the Joker putting on this kind of act that he was really this kind of sympathetic character, that other people are to blame for the way he is. and Harley's just completely buying it. And by our perspective, it just looks completely ridiculous. We know he's lying. We know she's completely falling for it. We think that she might look really, really foolish and stupid for believing him. Or even having any attraction to this guy, obviously, because he's ugly and he's evil. But in this book, we are seeing it entirely from Harley's perspective. And so the Joker is drawn more like a dark Prince Charming. And a lot of people complain about that, saying, no, that's not how the Joker should look. But it serves a purpose in this story. We're seeing everything completely through Harley's point of view. And in Mad Love, when the Joker is telling these ridiculous stories or showing this himself to maybe be a little softer to Harley, he just looks ridiculous. But in this story, when he turns to Harley all of a sudden and says that he'd actually like to see her smile someday. Obviously, Harley's very serious all the time in this version. He looks 100% sincere. And after that, Harley can't stop thinking about him. And I'm just recounting the book at this part. It's so good. She can't stop thinking, and she knows it's wrong, but now she feels that there's a connection and there's really a sympathetic side, and she starts to believe that she is the only one who sees it and that she has to continue to bring it out, like she can bring it back. And you can just see how she's being pulled into it, even though she sees it a little bit. But she's not really seeing what's happening to herself at this point. She thinks that she's really found someone sympathetic. And it's interesting. I saw someone complain and say it was believable to have Harley start being so affected by the Joker at that point. And how the relationship turned from, Harley thought he was very pretentious and very, just very evil before, and she was scared of him. But this is making it total sense, because up to this point, all we've seen with Harley's life is she's all about her career, she's all about professionalism, she's all about getting her theories through, getting her job as a psychiatrist, making herself successful, curing people, and we just see how everyone either ignores her or mistreats her at Arkham, or everything is always about the professional career side and how she's just pulled down constantly, people believing lies about her, telling lies about her, ignoring her, and then finally we see that the Joker is the only person at that moment who actually gets personal with her all of a sudden. It actually seems like he might care about her as a person. And so that's why I buy this kind of tale of Stockholm Syndrome, where all of a sudden she would start to be thinking that there's a connection between the two, and she actually would feel like that she really likes him. And also I think there were little minor hints before that she already liked him already, like when she can't help but call him Mr. J in her head, even though she wants to stop herself. There were little hints. Again, subtlety in a Harley Quinn book. I haven't gotten that we haven't gotten this since the animated series. We have not. I mean, there was good stuff before. There was the Arkham games. That was a good standard portrayal, but we haven't gotten anything this deep, this thought out, since the animated series, really. And again, it's going back to the basic ideas that Mad Love laid out, that Harley is just, it's what the Joker said, that she's very career-oriented, and that now she's met someone who's treating her in a different kind of relationship than that, and so that's why she feels an attraction all of a sudden. And so I like seeing how there's, like I said before, she was kind of just portrayed as a good person, as a good psychiatrist. Now we're getting little signs that she might have some darker aspects to her. I wish we'd developed it before, like I said. I still think that Sejic is kind of going with the idea that she's just a good person who's being corrupted, but we get to see her kind of want to let the Joker in. She says she feels that way, even though she knows it's wrong. We get to really see the conflict in her, where there's a part of her that really, really wants to let him in, but then outwardly she knows that it's wrong, and she's still trying to be professional, she's still trying to be good. But throughout the story, we see how her life is becoming less and less about her mission as a psychiatrist to find this new cure, and how it's just more about the Joker. He's now all she's thinking about, despite what else she might try, which adds up into one of the creepiest parts of the books, the ones that actually legitimately surprised me. I was appreciated to finally get a surprise. She, at one point in the book, does not want to go back to see Joker again, because she doesn't want to have these feelings anymore, and she doesn't want him to be able to play games with her anymore. She doesn't want to allow that, but she can't stop herself from going back and checking on him. So she goes and she checks on him when he's asleep, and she thinks, oh, he doesn't look so bad. and she sees that he has scars probably from his fight with Batman, and she thinks, oh, she starts to feel even more bad for him, like, oh, he's just been mistreated, he's just, this is why he's the way he is. And then, so later, they're both kind of having a bit more of an intense session where Joker doesn't want to tell her anything, supposedly, and she's getting angry because she knows that there's something there, and she's just kind of hammering away, trying to get him to break down his walls. So she asks him, you need to tell me about your loss. You need to tell me what happened to you that made you like this exactly. And he says very seriously, okay, I will, but you have to answer me one question first. And she says, okay, fine. And he says, and he all of a sudden gets this really creepy smile on and is like, how often do you watch me sleep? And it was the creepiest moment ever, and it was shocking, and I didn't expect it. And it was just like, oh, he's completely in control of this. He has completely manipulated this. Even if she does something he doesn't expect, then he finds a way to manipulate the situation to his advantage and show that he's the one in control. And then there's a great visual after that, where this is just such great visual storytelling, where the Joker is in, he becomes the one in the lab coat with the glasses and all professional, and Harley becomes the one in the straitjacket. And not really, but that's just supposed to be a metaphor for what's happening. And it's just such a great visual. I absolutely loved it. And so the book ends, there's so much more to talk about this book, but the book ends with him finally pressuring Harley enough, more than she sees. Harley isn't realizing how he's manipulating her. And I forgot what I was going to say. But he is pressuring her, and she feels that he's slipping away, and she says that, this whole idea is that she thinks that she is helping a man. This is the kind of the tagline for the next book, the preview. She thinks that she's helping someone, but he's really just dragging her to be what he is. And another great visual, this was what I was going to say, a great visual is how they all of a sudden become Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, where she's all of a sudden like, my grandma, what fascinating mental issues you have. And he's like, in the head, in the writing, not what they're actually saying to each other. He's, from Joker's perspective, it's the better to draw you near. And so that really illustrates it. So in the end, she makes it out like he accuses her of just being another, this is a reference to the earlier book, I think, that she's just trying to exploit him and just use her for her books and her theories. So to actually prove, that she actually cares about him, she turns off the camera so people can't see their session anymore, and she unbuckles his straitjacket so he can now go free. And she then realizes in her dialogue, in her inner dialogue, that she's probably just, after doing that foolish thing, she's probably just signed her death sentence, and that he's now going to come after her and actually kill her this time. And she tells him, and she finally admits everything she's been feeling, that she's scared about him, but she really cares about him, and that doesn't want a lot, to the point where it's really harming her job. And then she thinks he's gonna come and grab her, and he comes over and he does grab her, but it's not to hurt her. He just gives her a hug and says, thank you for caring. And that's how the book ends, like a big manipulative move by the Joker. Like, she thought that this was going to be the big thing where he finally attacked her, but then he just wanted to hug her and say that, well, thank you that someone finally cares about him. So this is the moment where he's finally gotten to the strategic point where he's finally convincing her that he is really someone that she's changing, and just reeling her into the relationship even more. And it's interesting also, there's just so much to dig into in this book, how the Joker has played around with her name in the story. In the original story, he just outright says he likes the nickname Harley Quinn. But in this story, at first he just says, can I call you Dr. Quinn because it's easier than your other name because it's a tongue twister? And she just goes, fine. And so he calls her Dr. Quinn throughout the book. And then by the end, she says he can call her Harley because that's her real name. And he says, oh, Harley Quinn, I like that. So he has played a game with her name to even mold her name to the way he wants it to be in this story. So I'm absolutely fascinated by this book, as you can tell. I love the Joker's characterization. I mean, it doesn't It doesn't really say anything new about him in the way books like The Killing Joke did when they first came out. We know most of it. It's just as great to see the light cast on the Joker of his manipulation. Because again, before it was treated as just kind of a joke, as it's really Harley is just that naive a person to be able to be twisted by anyone. And here it just shows how the Joker, in a more realistic sense, could be able to twist someone who is who has been portrayed as a lot saner. So portraying Harley as a bit saner was a good move on that part. I'll give it that. And I really like seeing Harley and how she is changing through this story and how she ends up breaking down her walls while she was trying to do that to the Joker instead, and how she is starting to become looser, and how she's starting to just lose how professional she was and only care about this relationship that they're having and how she feels she's helping him. And I'm sure it's going to get even crazier in the next issue. And what I like about this 3-issue format is that he always Sejic gives you enough so that you feel like we've got enough places in the story. I felt that way in this one, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Like at the end of the last one, I'm like, okay, how are these two possibly going to get together with what you've set up? I want to see that. I want to see how you explain that. And now I'm like, okay, how are you going to get Harley from the place where she just thinks he's helping a sympathetic man to the place where she actually is willing to kill someone? Because she's not at that place yet. So I'm really looking forward to the next issue, and I'm just thrilled by this because it's the best writing for Harley we've ever gotten. It is. Harley and Joker have such a misunderstood relationship. They are badly written by most everyone aside from Paul Dini, and now I can say that it's everyone aside from Paul Dini and Stjepan Sejic. Hopefully I pronounced that right. He gets their relationship because he knows how to write it with as an abusive relationship, as a manipulative one, but also give a lot of chemistry between the two characters, because it's the combination of those two things that make you really want to see. When the two characters have chemistry, you really like seeing them in the comic together, you really want to see their interactions, you really see that the Joker has a specific interest in Harley and why he wants to do this and why he wants to manipulate her in a certain way, and vice versa. You see why Harley starts to take on the Joker as kind of her pet project and why she would start to feel something for him. But it also, it has that chemistry between them. It has so much nuance and layers for their relationship, which is what I love about it, but it keeps it with the main idea that this is an abusive relationship, and it's ultimately built on these lies and how this one character tried to twist another to this level. And it's absolutely fascinating to read, and I've gone for almost 20 minutes now. I did not expect to do that, but there's just so much more to talk about. I'll probably do a more focused, in-depth review when the full thing comes out. And there are some things in the next issue where I'm just like, oh, really? Like Harley going into the vat, which of chemicals is pretty much confirmed by now. And I just don't like that origin, and I'll explain why next issue, hopefully. Maybe this time it'll change my mind. Maybe it'll be done well in this issue. But as of now, I'm perfectly happy. I think that this is what Harley as a character needs, something that finally goes back to her origin and what makes her work. And I think it's fascinating that everything about this works, and everyone who's a fan of the classic characters worked, but there's absolutely no humor in this book, and that's part of how Harley has been flanderized so much over the years. People have focused only on the humor and the quirkiness of her, and they think that's what works, when that's taken her down a really bad path and made her very hated in comics now. This one has no humor, and people are absolutely loving it, and it just shows there's a different thing about Harley that people are interested in. I still think she should be humorous in like a general role. She should have some comic relief. She should still have that personality back from the animated series. But that's not really what people really connect with. They connect with the relatable aspects, like a lot of people have been manipulated, and they've gotten into situations like this, and they know people who have, and they sympathize. Even if they haven't, they sympathize with Harley because this is happening to her. She's an actual grounded person who's having something bad happen to her and has flaws that lead her there, and that's what just makes us feel for her story and want to keep reading. And we're also interested to see the Joker side of it and how this layers him, how he's actually sort of turning someone to the dark side to be his sidekick as of now, and we see him get to have that relationship with basically his Robin, and how what that brings out in his character. So I will definitely review the next book. It's not coming out until December because they delayed it again, so comic book shops could up their orders again, which shows how very successful this is becoming. I think it'll sell even more once it gets in trade. And so I'll try to get that review out as soon as it comes out. I'm getting my physical copy for the book coming in next week. I've only read it online so far. But I will be back with that review, and I hope that it is just as good as this issue. Thank you for watching.